The 1-2. And Lowe corks it out to right field. That's ace hit. Tavares scores, and the Rangers have their first lead of the game, and it comes in the 10th inning.
And the Rangers would go on to win the ball game by a final of 3-2 as we were there, a Royals bus trip taking us to Kauffman Stadium where there was about an hour-and-a-half rain delay. And then we got the game in. It basically rained on us throughout the game, but they got the game in. The Royals looking pretty good after leading 2-0 through 7 innings, but give up a run in the 8th and then one in the 9th. James McArthur can't close the deal. Gave up a homer off the foul pole, which is right to our right. Nice big thud, and right away hits the pole. That's an automatic home run. A foot to the right would have been a foul ball. Royals probably win. Instead, that tied the game. We went to a 10th inning, and the Rangers go on to win 3-2. So the Royals lose 2 out of 3 to Texas. Bobby Witt Jr. scoring the 2 runs for the Royals, had a triple and a double. Vinny Pasquantino driving in Bobby Witt Jr. both times, the second one on a double. And Daniel Lynch pitched well after a struggle in the first inning, stranded the bases loaded, and settled in, pitched 5 scoreless, gave up just 2 hits, but got a no decision. Quartero on Lynch's first start of the year for the Boys in Blue.
Really good. I mean, first inning, a lot of pitches, was able to get out of it, and then was really efficient the rest of the way. Got swing and miss, really competitive, threw a lot of strikes, and was a really good start for us.
So the Royals lose by a final of 3-2. Royals are 20-15 now on the year. They'll stay home to start a 3-game set with the Brewers at 6:40 this evening. Cole Reagans will be on the bump for KC. This is a Sports Ticket brought to you by Kiefer Brothers Automotive in Beloit, your home for fast, friendly auto repair. I'm hoping that that jackpot gets nice and big, and then they draw out one of the numbers that I bought for the 50-50 raffle, which won't be till the end of the homestand on Wednesday night. My youngest son is sitting there going, Dad, it's up to 51,000. I'm like, trust me, it's going to get up there. It's going to get up there. But that'd be pretty cool to win, but definitely not planning any kind of budget expenses based off of winning the 50-50 raffle. But the bus trip was fun. We had a good time. Thanks to everybody that made it out there. Thanks to all our sponsors, Gerard's over in Osborne, Bonert Welding in Jewel, McKinney Professional Pharmacy in Mankato. Big thank you as well to Miller Hardware LLC in Downs, Cunningham Telephone and Cable, and now actually Cunningham Fiber. I will take a long time to ever get that one right on the first try. And also big thanks to Ray's Apple Market there in Beloit and Dairy Queen in Beloit were our sign-up locations, and we had a good time and braved the colder weather. It really wasn't that too cold. It was just the rainy part of it, but they got the game in, and then we were able to get back, believe it or not, by 10 o'clock, even though the game was delayed by about an hour and a half due to the rain. And on top of it all, the new rules that the baseball has helped us get home a decent time. If this would have happened about 5 years ago, we probably wouldn't have got home till 11:30. So thanks for the pitch clock. And people that don't like the pitch clock, I just don't think you can appreciate fully how much good this is for the game.
Yeah, when the scoreboard says start time is now 2:30, I'm like, thank God for the pitch clock and the shorter inning, in between innings situation that we've got now.
we were pleased with that. A couple of highlights on our bus trip. Well, first of all, it was great that Cindy could go with us. She attended her first Royals game. It's great to take a trip with Cindy. Her and I have had many road trips over the years, going to Beloit activities. Her and I would carpool together to save gas and keep each other company. Or sometimes she'd drive and I'd nap, which was perfect as well. But and then when my oldest, who's now a senior, about to ready to graduate, his last day is Wednesday. He would ride in the back seat with us sometimes and help with the video stream back when we started all of that. So it was great for Cindy to go. Barb, it was her first time going to a Royals game. She was very excited, very lippy, but very excited. I'm kidding. I'm just having fun with her. She is a nice, great person. And Bonnie always is excited to go. We had a mixture of young kids. We got some youngsters, their first ever game. We said some older people had their first ever game. We had some people in the middle that was their first game. We had a lot of returners on our bus trip that had been to Royals games multiple times. So we had a wide variety of people, which was terrific, and I think made it even more fun. And we had a great time there. And the only downer really was, really nobody got too discouraged by the rain. I didn't think in our group. I think the only thing that was discouraging was the Royals couldn't hang on and win the ball game. They lose 3-2. And 2 years ago, the Royals were up 6-0 in the 8th and lost 7-6. But they stunk. And then yesterday, they're up 2-0 after 7, and they lose 3-2 and 10. So They've only won twice in the 7 times we've gone. I believe we've gone 7 times. They're 2-5, and they won against the A's, who were horrible last year. First year, which was a year after the World Series, which we took 2 buses, I believe, that year, full of Royals fans, and the Royals won that game on a walk-off homer in the 13th inning. But we have not brought them as much luck as we'd like.
Yeah, this one didn't sting quite as much as the one 2 years ago. I mean, it's 2-0. I mean, the Rangers are a good team. That's not, you don't feel like that's a overly safe. I didn't anyway. Like, I'm like, this is not an overly safe lead right now. And then they got the run in the 8th, and I'm like, it's definitely not a safe lead anymore.
One swing of the bat would tie it, and that's exactly what happened. And it hit the foul pole of all places.
I know. I've never been that close to one that did that. It's just like thud, and I'm like, oh, well, game's tied.
Yeah,
I'm just like, oh. Right off the foul pole. Game's tied.
Some people are like looking around like, is that a home run or not? Yep, it's foul pole. AP's foul pole. That's a home run. Zach Stonehands.
I was just going to say, I hope his hands aren't hurting too bad today.
Zach Stonehands Middleton couldn't catch a foul ball with one hand. Like, come on, man. Next time, bring your A game. I'm kidding. He didn't have a glove. With the netting all the way down the lines now, you really don't need a baseball glove as much as you once did for foul balls, but there are a few that come over the net, and there was one that was to Dusty and Mai's right, and it was right there near Zach and Tanya, and Zach put his right hand, hit him right in the palm, and then bounced off to the right. So Zach didn't quite come up with it, but it was a nice effort. Said it stung a little bit, had a little tingling in his hand. Yeah. Like, I bet. I bet. So that was interesting. Curtis being charged $20 for a Bavarian pretzel was hilarious. He's sitting there like, man, I can't believe they charged like 20. That can't be right. That cannot be right, man. I think I'd check on that. He went back, checked, and like, oh yeah, we double billed you for the pretzel. Then they gave him 2 free bags of peanuts, which not free because they didn't give his money back. So that's what he got back in exchange. And I'm guessing the 2 bags of peanuts cost $1.60 total. And so at least Curtis got some peanuts out of the deal, but that was kind of an interesting deal as well. And so, yeah, we had a good time. Anything that stand out to you?
No, you hit on the things that stood out on the bus for sure. It was definitely a fun time, and being able to see. It's always fun to be able to see the first timers go and have their first experience. It was I walked around the Hall of Fame with Cindy and stuff since she was sitting by me, so we just kind of stuck around each other there, and that was cool. I said we walked by the World Series trophies. I said, as a rite of passage, you got to take your picture with the World Series trophies the first time you're out here. So we did that, and it was wild. Like, I had to go up and get food on the 4th level. I couldn't deal with all the people around the 1st level during that rain delay trying to get some food.
Yeah.
Now, that concourse is a lot wider than it used to be, but man, it's still not wide enough for something like that. So yeah, it was. But it was. We could go into a long conversation about how they could have just started the game at 110 and moved on with life. But
well,
it is what it is.
I looked at the radar, and it didn't say it was going to clear up till 5. And I told people, I said, listen, if they had started the game at 110 and it was dry and it started raining 2 minutes into the game, they would have kept on playing.
Yeah.
And even a representative for the Royals who brought us down some of those prizes to give away, he said, sorry about the rain. I'm like, well, you can't control that. It's okay. At least we're getting the game in. That's the important thing. It would have been a complete bummer go all the way there, and then the game gets canceled or postponed. That's what I was hoping wasn't going to happen, which I didn't think it would, because there's no storms or lightning or anything like that. It wasn't going to be a heavy rain. But, he said, he admitted it, that they were just kind of hoping or praying there'd be a break in the weather there so they could start, with no rain. Yeah. And it's like, dude, if you look at everything, you should have just went ahead and played at 110.
Yeah.
And we would have got back even sooner. Not the end of the world. We got back a decent time. But I know what they're trying to do. The other thing is, we do the Royals bus trip on a Sunday. I've had some people say, why don't you do it on a Friday or Saturday night? Well, first of all, if you have rain on a Friday, Saturday night, they're more likely to postpone the game, and then you got no game. Because you can do a doubleheader on a Sunday, whatever the case may be sometimes. But Sunday, when it's an afternoon game, you have more time, in case it does rain, to push the game back and have a weather delay like we did yesterday. And many times on a Sunday, not all the time, like division teams, they're going to probably come back to the K again later in the season. But teams that are not in your division don't come to the K very often. They might just come for 1 3-game series, and that's what the Rangers were doing. And so Texas obviously is going to want to wait it out because they don't want to come all the way back for some odd game in August or September back to Kansas City. So that's one of the reasons why I picked Sunday as a game to go to for the Royals bus trip, because one, we can do it all in one day. It's an afternoon game. We leave at 8 in the morning. We get back around 9, 10 o'clock at night. It's a long day, but we don't get back at 2 in the morning. We don't have to leave at 5 in the morning or anything like that. but also we have a better chance of the game actually being played. You can deal with some weather like we did yesterday, and we know that it is getaway day for the opposing team, but if it's a team that the Royals don't see very often in Kansas City, they are going to do everything they can to get the game in because they do not want to fly back for one single game later in the year. So it all worked out for us yesterday, except that they lost.
Yeah, that part didn't work, but it's all right. They're
no, it's not all right.
On the track, and I've seen a lot of worse losses than that.
Oh, yes.
In my day watching
Way
the
more.
Royals at Cotton Stadium. So
way more. Royals couldn't get really anything going offensively too much except for Bobby Witt Jr. And the Royals do lose 3-2. Today's makeup junior high track meet at Republic County has been canceled due to the forecasted weather. It will not be made up. So they tried twice to schedule this junior high track meet at Republic County. Weather's messed it up both times. That coming from Athletic Director Kyle Beisner at Beloit. So once again, today's makeup junior high track meet at Republic County has been canceled, which means it will not be rescheduled. Let me explain this again in the 10 seconds I need. Postponed is supposed to mean that it will be rescheduled at a later date, that they're still trying to schedule it and play it. When you hear the word canceled, that's supposed to mean that it's done. It will not be rescheduled. It's canceled. It's off the schedule. But I don't know how many people I deal with over the years that say canceled, but we're going to make it up on April 28th. It's not canceled if you have a makeup date. Okay? It's postponed and will not be played. No, that would be canceled. Postpone means you're going to... No. Postpone means till a later date. Okay? Canceled means done.
Finito.
Done. Okay? Postpone means working on it or hope to or already have a rescheduled date postponed to a later date. So some, not Kyle Beisner, but some athletic directors still don't understand the difference between the two words. And so then people are like, so is it canceled or postponed? Are they going to make it up or are they not? And I'm like, well, if everybody understood what the damn words meant, then it would clear up some confusion. If everybody understood that cancel means canceled, you shouldn't have to ask the question, will it be made up? And if people would use postpone in the right way, then you wouldn't have to say, so does that mean they're canceled? But that's what happens. And I don't blame people asking those questions because it sounds stupid to ask those questions if you know what the words mean. But the thing is, some of the people that send out these things, okay, administration or whoever, it's not just athletic directors or anybody else, or even coaches sometimes to their team on group text. It's like, that's why people ask, even though it should mean exactly what you think it means, but people use it in the wrong way. So that junior high track meet canceled. Benito.
Yes. I was like, you get like a basketball game in December and somebody will say it's canceled, and I'm like,
no.
I'm sure you're probably making that up, right?
You got 3 months to make it up, yeah. The Royals are 20-15. The Twins were the hottest team in baseball. They had a 12-game winning streak snapped yesterday and a 9-2 loss to the Red Sox. So you got the Guardians at first place in AL Central, then you got the Royals right there along with the Twins. Twins, after a tough start, a 12-game winning streak. A 12-game winning streak will help you catch up, obviously, and erase a bad start. And the Twins did get off to a bad start. All right, local sports, Dusty. Friday we have some results to pass along.
Yeah, softball, Beloit finished out their regular season there with a sweep over Republic County, 13-3-5, and then 12-2-6 in the second game. Some track and field results from Friday as well, as the Rock Hills Grizzly Invitational was held there in Mankato. Washington County, the girls team champ, boys team champ was Smith Center. It would take forever to go through even just the gold medal winners for all the tracks. So we're kind of hitting some of the highlights from Friday. Madison Howland of Smith Center took the gold in both the 800 and 1600 there on the girls' side, and on the boys' side, multiple gold medals for Johnny Hamel of Osborne in the 1600 and 3200 individually, and Joshua Ferguson of Thunder Ridge finished first in both the shot and discus. Southeast Sling Invitational there on Friday. Beloit took first as a girls' team yet again. They've won every meet they've competed in so far this season. Boys' team-wise, Southeast took first place, individual multiple gold medals for Tatum Seifert, yet again our athlete of the week last week, as she won both the discus and shot put there, Southeast Sling Invitational on Friday. Thompson Relays at Lincoln. The girls team champion was Sylvan Lucas. Boys team champ was Lincoln. Bentley Smith of Lincoln won both the 100 and 200 meter golds. Cody Hill of Sylvan Lucas winning both the 400 and 800. Morgan Finkenbinder from Sylvan Lucas won both the high jump and triple jump. So on the boys side, multiple gold medal winners, Xavier Miller, 200 high jump and long jump. His twin brother Jeremiah won both the 110 and 300 meter hurdles there on Friday in Lincoln. So if you want the full results for all of that, you can find it at ncksports.com. And you'll be able to see how everybody fared there in track and field. Also, at NCCastSports.com, you'll be able to look at all the regional assignments for everything that's coming up here for baseball, softball, track and field, golf, all coming up here with regionals in the next this coming week and a half. Next Friday will be regional track and field or Thursday, actually, May 16th, for all of our area teams. So you have softball next week and regional baseball already starting on Thursday. Due to the shortage of umpires, they're starting things a little bit early there just to get everything in, and then they'll change up a little bit of how that regional will look. Beloit and Sylvan Lucas Lincoln are both at the Marysville Regional, and the first two the top two games in the top part of the bracket are the number one seed Ellsworth host site, and the bottom two games will be at Marysville. And even though Beloit is the number 3 seed at 12-8, they will be at number 6 seed Marysville, who's 6-12, coming up at 4:00 on Thursday afternoon. So that'll be a first-round game there. And then on the top of the bracket, Sylvan Lucas Lincoln's the 5 seed, 6-11 against 4 seed Southeast of Saline, who's 13-9. That'll be a 4:00 game on Thursday at Ellsworth in first-round action. So again, I may have to look back and search a bit. I'm going to move that here later this morning to the top of the website at nccastsports.com for all the regional assignments once I have a chance to do that. So, again, regional baseball starting on Thursday. Brackets have been released by the Kansas State High School Activities Association.
The new way of doing things, first of all, we talked about the umpires and having to do multiple regionals and higher classifications, lower classifications. So that's part of why. Well, first of all, that's why Beloit doesn't get a host first-round game, and because you get doubleheader. Then Marysville, you get doubleheader in Ellsworth, so it makes sense. I get it. Still stinks, but the reason it's that way is because people in our society don't know how to control themselves at ball games and have forced good umpires and officials and people preventing them and intimidating them and being mean to them to where they say, you know what, I don't want to do this. So it's not their fault. It's your fault. If you're one of those people, you're part of the problem. And so it is what it is. So you got to go. Beloit's got to go in instance to Marysville, even though they're the 3 seed, Marysville the 6 seed. But the other thing, too, is it used to be like the regional baseball was pretty much boom, boom, boom. You went one day or did it in 2 days. I think they did 2 days, and then sometimes they do it in 3 days. But it was all boom, 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 back to back to back. Well, that part of the reason they like to spread this out a little bit more now, too, is that teams that have those really good pitchers, they don't have those pitchers available because of the pitching rules with the pitch counts and everything else. And it is the new way that they're doing this in regional baseball really helps teams that have one dominant pitcher but don't have a lot of pitching after that. Mm-hmm. And the teams that get hurt by the new thing are teams like Beloit. Beloit doesn't have a dominant pitcher, but Beloit has 3 pretty solid pitchers and got a few others that they could sprinkle in. So Beloit maybe has more depth in their pitching staff than a team that has a dominant pitcher and then falls off. So in the old way of doing things, and I remember in fact, it just happened a couple years ago, Ellsworth didn't throw their best pitcher because they're trying to save him for the next round of the regional, and then guess what? They got in trouble, and they brought him in too late, and they lost. And if they would have started him from the very beginning, they probably would have won, but then they might not have him for the next game or the next day. And so that's what happens when you are so heavy-handed with your pitching rotation. So they got hurt by that. Teams that have pitching depth, usually that helps them when you play the games in a short period of time. And so this year's Beloit team doesn't have a dominant pitcher, but the new setup with regional baseball hurts Beloit more so than some other teams because of that very fact that you can throw your ace on Thursday and you turn around and throw them again on the 14th of May. So Thursday's May 9th, and then they turn around because at the regional at Marysville, Beloit plays on Thursday, and then you don't play again to the 14th. So that's 4 days between the first round and the semifinal game. But then the championship game is right after the semifinals, the same day, which is kind of interesting. So what you end up having then is a situation where you can throw your ace on the 9th and turn around and throw him on the 14th. And that covers up that you don't have a second or third good pitcher. Whereas you have a team that has 3 or 4 good pitchers, but nothing dominant, okay, that hurts them in situations like this. And, it is what it is. I mean, every system that we have, whether it's, state, sub-state basketball, if you end up hosting, and you're the 3 seed, but it might help you win because you're on your home floor, That's not perfectly fair either. You submitted to host sub-state. You weren't the number one seed. Once you get to the semifinals in basketball, it's at a neutral site, but sometimes that team gets the home games. Sometimes the one seed ends up hosting, so it's all good. They earned it. Sometimes not. Marysville's hosting. They have a bad record. That doesn't mean they're a bad team. They might have a tough schedule. And they get to host in the friendly confines of their own field. They know all the intricacies of it. And Beloit does not. And Beloit, even though they're the 3 seed and won 7 more games than Marysville, whatever it is, they got to go to Marysville because of the umpire situation. So, it is what it is. They both got to play on the same field. Nobody has a big advantage other than I would say there's a slight advantage for Marysville knowing the field and everything else, and also not having to travel as a 6 seed, whereas Beloit's got to travel. At the same time, they're still going to play baseball. And that's the important thing, getting the games in. So we've had some tweaks when it comes to various things in sports in the state of Kansas, and Keisha's made some tweaks with things here and there, and some are good, some are bad, some are kind of in between. Some help certain schools, some hurt other schools. And don't even get me started with the shot clock that's next year, that's optional, which some of these bigger schools have no clue. I've seen things. These bigger schools have no clue how it impacts anybody outside of their town or their school, and they have no clue what kind of problem. And I'm telling you, they don't fully understand the headaches they're going to have when they get the postseason, and everybody's going to be going. All their rabid fan base is going to be screaming at them, going, "Why isn't there a shot clock in sub-state basketball?" It's going to, trust me, it's going to happen.
No, for sure.
It's like, why would you have a rule in place, even if you adopted it all across the way, 4, 5, and 6A, all season long, everybody agrees, shot clock. So let's just say every single game, shot clock. And then you go to sub-state and you state, and there's no shot clock. Does that make any sense whatsoever to anybody? Because I haven't heard one person actually agree that makes sense. So these bigger schools are celebrating. Ooh, we got a shot clock. They're all excited. I'm like, you dumbasses. You're not going to have it for the games that are the most important ones, and that's called postseason play. So now your strategy will need to change, okay? And you're also not going to like it when you go to some school and they don't have it. You're going to be upset, and fans are going to complain. It's going to cause more people to be upset about things. Adopt a policy, put it in, be done with it. Good for every single game. It wasn't that complicated. 4A, 5A, 6A won it, or 5A, 6A won it, boom, you have it. And you have it for all the postseason in the state. And let the smaller classes that made it very clear that they were not in favor of it, very clear, almost 80-20 split, they don't have to worry about anything with a shot clock at all. Don't have to worry about even the optional part. So there, I'm done with that. But it's just interesting. Some people don't like change. I'm okay with change. I have no big problem with change if it makes some sense. The shot clock thing, to me, the idea of having a shot clock, I am cool with.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense.
But the way they're putting it in is just kind of like, well, it's up to you. If you want to make your own dinner, you want to go get hey, we're having a family dinner tonight, but all 4 of you can go do whatever you want and bring it back to the table. Oh, okay. But what time are we all going to get back? Well, it'll be different times, but eventually we'll all be together at the same time. Yeah, but what if one of us is done eating completely? Well, I don't care. I mean, it's optional. Yeah. It's optional. Optional? Okay, well, can it be optional that Beloit chooses not to go to Marysville for baseball? That they're the higher seed and it's their option to bring Marysville here if they provide the umpires? Of course it's not. So that whole thing doesn't make any sense. But the point is that things do change whether you like it or not. And this is one of those with the baseball side of things. Yeah,
I mean, your comment about the important part is the games are being played. And if you ever really want to hey, be happy the games are being played, 4 years ago at this time, spring sports were not happening.
Yep,
nobody.
You had no sports season, no spring season.
Sports
You're
season.
right.
So
So while we do whine about
playing these
that's
games
true.
and you have the opportunity, because there's some,
Yes.
there's a senior that I know very well that was about to try to set some records on the spring track and field high jump circuit. That's just an example in my mind. There's a lot of people that lost an opportunity for another gold medal at state, for another chance to make it to state baseball or softball.
Yeah, 4-time qualifier, things like that.
State golf, another championship there.
Defend a state title.
Yeah, and you could have a long list of even longer run streaks for some state champions in golf for sure for the teams in the area. So you do it. If there's too much complaining about it, just be like, you're playing, man.
Yeah, and like I'm saying here is I'm not up in arms about the situation. I understand why it is the way it is. I mean, and I know it's not. I'm not blaming Keisha on that part of anything at all. I don't blame how that's set up. I don't blame how they're doing it. I don't blame the umpires at all. They have nothing to do with that. I don't blame the coaches or athletic directors or anybody like that. Like I said, that's self-inflicted by fans. That's what caused that.
Yeah.
And but like you said, and I think it's an absolute excellent point you just made, is it's sure better playing the games than not having any at all. Like we didn't have a spring season. We didn't have a spring sports season at all. There was a couple of practices, and then boom, it was it. We talked about how basketball teams got robbed of finishing out, trying to win a state title, finishing maybe a couple wins shy, and it's still tough for some of those kids to deal with. I get it. At the same time, they got to play 95% of their schedule. Kids that played baseball, softball, golf, boys tennis, track and field, they had a whole season of theirs completely wiped out. Not partially, completely wiped out. Didn't even get to play anything. And think about the seniors that were really good, or that was their favorite sport, track and field, baseball, softball, whatever it may be, and then you don't even get to compete your senior year. And that was overlooked. I think we got caught up in, a lot of people got caught up in the state basketball stuff because you were already had started the tournaments. So everybody focused on that so much. And then the following year, we didn't have a full schedule in basketball. There was some COVID cancellations, things like that. But you at least had to put together some kind of season. But you had people, empty gymnasiums for part of the season. Only so many people could go. It was a different thing. But you at least got to play most of your season. But those kids, and I know if you're a freshman, a sophomore, or junior that year, you missed a whole spring sports season as well. But the ones I feel even worse for, and always have, are the seniors that didn't even get to play any of their season. Mm-hmm. So you make an absolute astute point that, hey, it might not be great. You're the higher seed and you got to go on the road, but at least you're getting to play the games and you get determined on the field instead of something else.
I think the only thing that I would actually, moving to the actual point of the conversation of Beloit having to play in Marysville, the one thing that I might look at, I'm just shooting this out there, why you're playing 2 games at Ellsworth, right? Because they got the number 1 seed, right. So they're playing at Ellsworth. So could you play the 2 games in Seneca instead of Marysville, because Seneca earned a home game too as a number 2 seed, right? So you instead, I know Marysville's hosting the tournament in the semis and finals, but it's like if you
the first round game,
if your whole point of the previous way you did this was to reward the teams that got the better record and seed. Right. Beloit and Nemaha Central have the same record, so it'd probably, I don't know, coin flip is how they determine that or not. So there's an opportunity there where you could have had either both games in Beloit if they won the flip, or both games in Seneca.
True.
Because if you're doing that already with the top half of the bracket. Mm-hmm. You want to play 2 games in one place either way.
Well, they do that for the number 1 seed that isn't hosting it. Why wouldn't they do it for the 2 seed? Because then once you get through the first round, as you're saying, you're going to be at Marysville to host the semis and finals anyway.
And I think that would be my only suggestion on maybe changing that.
I agree with
part
that.
of it.
Yeah,
the games are going to be played and they're going to get them in, and that's good. I think that's a way to maybe avoid the 6th seed being able to host.
That way a lower seed doesn't host a first round game, and then it is the bidding process. If you end up being the 6th seed and won at Beloit, or you beat Nemaha Central and Seneca, okay, sub-state or regional semifinals and finals are on your home field, even though you're a 6th seed. Well, that's how it works at sub-state basketball too. Yeah, I think those are good points that you make. I'm going to anoint you baseball and softball commissioner.
I mean, I'm not a genius, but it's like if you're already doing this for the one, why not reward the two that got that spot
was
too?
my first reaction when I first heard it. I'm like, why are we all worried about the one but not the two? Doesn't the two deserve some protection as well? But whatever. Coming up in 30 seconds, turn attention to the NBA, the NHL, and some close finishes in horse racing and in NASCAR.
Extended warranties on vehicles have become a very popular thing. You may have bought one, but what do you do to take advantage of the benefits when you need them? Kiever Brothers Automotive in Beloit works with most all warranty contracts, and we can be your advocate when you need repairs. Just bring us your car, your concerns, and a copy of the warranty contract, and we take care of the rest. Let our fast, friendly service help you get the most out of your extended warranty contract. Find Kiever Brothers Automotive just south of the courthouse in Beloit or on the web at KieverBrothers.com.
It'll be their first playoff series win in 6 years. And that'll do it. Donovan Mitchell and a ferocious Cavs defense. They win Game 7.
Home team wins every game of the Magic and Cavs series. Welcome back to the Sports Ticket, brought to you by Kiever Brothers Automotive in Beloit, your home for fast, friendly auto repair. Cavs take Game 7 Eastern Conference first round with the Magic yesterday, 106-94. They trailed by 18 in the first half, but Donovan Mitchell, playing with a bum knee, he came through in the second half at 39 points. And the Cavs will move on. There are 2 games on the schedule tonight in the NBA. The Knicks and Pacers play Game 1 of their second-round series at 6:30 on TNT in the East. In the West, defending champion Nuggets are down 1-0 after a loss to the Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards is the future star of this league. Mm-hmm. He had 43 the other night, and he's only 22. Game 2 is at 9 o'clock tonight on TNT. Nuggets don't want to go down 2-0, heading back to Minnesota. A couple observations about the NBA playoffs. First of all, the Cavs will move on and take on the Celtics. I don't think the Cavs have a great chance of winning that series, especially with Mitchell not being 100%, although he kind of willed his team to victory yesterday. The Celtics are a different animal than the Magic, and they're certainly experienced, so I expect the Celtics to win the next round. The Knicks-Pacers, who do you like in that series?
I'm going to go with the Knicks, I guess.
Yeah, I don't want to, but I think the Knicks play more defense, so I'm going to say the Knicks win that series in 7. In the West, we were talking about a lot of people think it's going to be the Nuggets that are going to move on, but I talked about before the series began, the Timberwolves pushed the Nuggets pretty far last year in each and every one of their games. I think it was a 5-game series, and they did not have Karl Anthony Towns had just come back from injury. They had Jaden McDaniels had been hurt; he didn't play, and another key, Naz Reid didn't play, and he's possibly going to be the 6th man of the year in the NBA. So they got those guys back, and the Nuggets lost. Bruce Brown was a big part of their team. So I do think the Nuggets aren't quite as good as last year. The Timberwolves are, and Anthony Edwards is even better this year than last year. Karl Anthony Towns is healthy. Gobert is healthy. And the T-Wolves are them and the Thunder are the 2 rising teams in the West right now. And they could very well be on a collision course to meet each other in the Western Conference Finals. And to me, that would absolutely signify that the torch has been passed, and it's a new era in the West in the NBA. No more do you need to worry about LeBron unless he just jumps and piggybacks with a young team that will get another ring, which is possible. No more do you need to worry about Steph Curry and the Warriors. You don't have to worry about the Lakers and LeBron might not even be with the Lakers next year anyway. It's the young teams. It's the team like it's the Thunder. It's the team like the T-Wolves. The Nuggets still will be good, but those 2 teams are younger than the Nuggets, the T-Wolves and the Thunder. And then, I think the team that's lurking, and I think a lot of people, even Magic Johnson mentioned this the other day, a team that is lurking, I think the Pelicans are a young team. If Zion would have been healthy, who knows what would have happened. But the other team that's lurking that did not have a good year record-wise, but they have a star in the making, is the San Antonio Spurs with Wembanyama. So the West, to me, if the Nuggets get knocked out in this series, it is a complete changing of the guard. And I know the Nuggets weren't like atop the roost for very long because they won it last year, but LeBron and Lakers lose first round again. Well, not again. They lost in the Western Conference Finals last year, but they got knocked out first round. They've been a low seed for 2 straight years. The Warriors, put a fork in that dynasty. It's done. The dynasty's over. They might still be solid and respectable, but they got to make some tough decisions this offseason. This could very well be the Thunder and the T-Wolves, 2 teams from the Midwest, and I'm sure not super thrilled with rating-wise because you might not have, although if you have the Knicks and the Celtics, that'll make up for it on the East side for TV revenue and TV exposure in the big East Coast and the big markets there. But the Thunder and the T-Wolves, a lot of people have slept on these teams throughout the year. I've been telling you the Thunder for the last couple of years. I think they're a year ahead of schedule, but I've said for the last couple of years, the Thunder have it all lined up. They've been very astute in their draft picks. They've traded to get a lot of draft capital. They have positioned themselves, and I said this 2 years ago, the Thunder, if they get to a point where they're close to winning it all, they can go all in. And so, for instance, if this year the Thunder, let's say the Thunder make it to the NBA Finals and lose, or they make it to the Western Conference Finals and lose in 6 or 7, if they feel they're one piece away, they got plenty of draft capital, and they got plenty of young players, and they could go trade to try to get a big-time, they could try to sign a big free agent, or they can go trade for a guy and help a team, relieve themselves from some cap debt because of a big contract. So the Thunder, I still think, are in pretty good shape as to what they want to do, whether they win it this year or not. The T-Wolves are in good shape in the future, although they do have a couple players a little bit older. Gobert and Towns are a little bit older. The Thunder have the young core. But I'm personally, I like the Nuggets. I like Murray. I like Jokic. They did win it last year. I'm kind of looking forward to a Thunder T-Wolves Western Conference Finals. I think it'd be fun and refreshing and different. Might not make the TV executives happy, but
the NBA TV people are saying, let's go Dallas and Denver.
Yeah, probably so.
But, I think if you want to see a good series, that would be fun to watch, the Thunder and T-Wolves for sure. Just young guys getting up and down the court. And, Minnesota was fun to watch the other night. I hadn't had a chance to watch a whole lot of their first round series, but, I caught the second half of the Denver game one, and, yeah, Anthony Edwards is unreal when he's at the top of his game.
The season for home court advantage for the 1, 2, and 3 seasons in the West came down to the final game of the season, and it could have been the Nuggets, it could have been the Thunder, it could have been the T-Wolves. It ended up being the Thunder. Those 3 teams have been the best teams in the West all year. The Mavericks are trying to break into the party a little bit because they came on strong at the end of the year. And so they're the one that could ruin all that. And when you got Irving, you got Doncic. I will say the Mavs, I have to give Irving some credit. He finally seems to fit in there with the Mavericks. He's playing defense, which was impressive to me against the Clippers, and he seems to be all in. And I don't think he's been all in since he played with LeBron in Cleveland.
Exactly. You got to have a guy that's going to be a team player with Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
Like you can, like the other places that he's been, is just like there's only one basketball, right? And those people are not going to get along.
No.
And obviously the whole Brooklyn thing didn't work at all.
And Irving, I think, has matured a little bit with his age. He even said it the other day. Like, he realizes that Luka's 1A.
Yeah.
But Irving knows he can be 1A if he needs to be.
Yeah. And there was obviously a point in time there where he needed in his mind to be 1A because he was playing with LeBron for so long.
Yeah.
And
ego.
And it just didn't work the way anybody wanted it to, really.
No, you're right. Do you have the T-Wolves winning this series?
I actually, based on game one and the way they've been playing, it's hard not to pick them. Winning a game in Denver, you already got home court back, and it's going to be tough.
Murray's banged up a little bit.
That's part of it, too.
And the Timberwolves have the size to bother Jokic.
Mm-hmm.
And they slowed down some of their best sets the other day. And it helped seeing them play last year in the series, even though the Timberwolves lost. They learned a lot from the Nuggets, and they've improved. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting series. No question about that. The Thunder and the Mavericks, I think the Thunder are going to win that series. I'll say 6.
I'll say 7.
7.
Oklahoma City wins, though.
Okay, let's shift our attention to the NHL playoffs.
Johnston for Dallas in the first. Howden for Vegas in the second. Here's Craig Smith back out for Foxa. Backhand shot. Score!
That goal put the Dallas Stars up 2-1, and that would be the final. They eliminate the defending Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights with that 2-1 win. They advance to the second round as they won that series 4-3. In the East, it's the Rangers who won Game 1 in the second round over the Hurricanes 4-3. Tonight in the East, the Panthers will host the Bruins at 7 o'clock in Game 1 of the second round. The Bruins won in 7 games, won Game 7 over Toronto over the weekend. Kentucky Derby took place over the weekend, and it was close.
It is Mystic Dan down toward the inside with the lead in the final 16. Forever Young, Sierra Leone is coming. These 3 coming down to the wire. Who's it going to be? Oh, it's a photo of the Derby. Oh, it's a photo. Was it Mystic Dan or what? Freedom finished fourth. A photo finish to decide the 150th Kentucky Derby.
18-1 favorite Mystic Dan won the first leg of the Triple Crown on Saturday, as you just heard, taking Kentucky Derby by a nose, literally. It was the first time in 28 years there was a finish by the nose, and just the 10th time in race history. Next race in Triple Crown is Preakness in Baltimore, coming up on May the 18th. If you thought that was close, did you see what happened at Kansas Speedway after they had to delay the race all the way till about 5 o'clock when they started? Man, if you stuck around to watch that race, you got your money's worth, and you probably had no idea who won at the very end. Neither did the announcers.
And here comes Truex. They're going to close right to the 2 leaders. Coming to the line. Clash together. I believe Buscher.
I think you're right. It's so close. This is going to be a huge win for Buscher. They're excited. I think it's him, Kevin.
That was incredible.
Corey Heim gets spun just past the checkered flag with, I think, Austin Dillon.
Oh, yeah.
Let's look at it. I don't. It may be the 5.
Hold on. Well, let's have a look at the video.
Uh-oh, boys.
Buscher is ahead. Larson is coming. It's like the Kentucky Derby.
Oh,
it's
my
that close. It's Larson.
Holy cow.
Holy cow. Man, you cannot have any closer of a finish than you had in Kansas Speedway last night. 1,000th of a second. I mean, thank goodness for technology.
Yeah.
Or you have no idea who won.
Yeah.
That. I mean, with the eye, they thought the other guy won. Boucher.
Yeah.
It's incredible how close the Kentucky Derby was. And then the reference that in the call there, I thought was pretty good, too.
Yeah, it was, for sure.
And these guys are announcing, they're trying to figure it out. And they're just not positive. They're going with what they saw with their eyes, and they got to wait for the replays to be queued up on the monitor. And even the crew chiefs of the 2 teams didn't know for a little while. Like,
yeah,
did we win or did we not win?
Somebody there toward the back heard Kyle Larson's comms, and they're like, "Oh, he just won! What are they celebrating for?"
Well, the unofficial timing and results that went up showed that Buscher won.
Yeah,
so that was off. That was, you can't get any closer.
No,
you cannot possibly get any closer.
I was scrolling through Twitter, saw the picture of it, and it's like, oh my god, it's just like a nick of the bumper, just barely.
And think if you're at Kansas Speedway and you're cheering for Buscher, and you see the unofficial results pop up, and you're starting to celebrate as a fan, even though it's delayed because you're like, who won? And you're all excited, and then in ecstasy, like, all right, yeah, and all of a sudden, like, oh no, actually Larson won. And you're like, oh, and you just like, just the emotional high and low of that within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Anyway, it was a photo finish in NASCAR yesterday at Kansas Speedway. Overtime finish that will be replayed for years to come. Kyle Larson charged to the outside of Chris Buscher in turns 3 and 4 and beat him at the finish line on a photo finish to win the Advent Health 400 at Kansas Speedway. The margin of victory for Larson over Buscher was 1,000th of a second, the closest finish in the history of the NASCAR Cup Series, the second closest finish in the history of all of NASCAR's National Touring Series. The finish was so close that Buscher was initially shown as the winner by electronic timing and scoring, as I mentioned, but further review showed Larson barely beat Buscher to the finish line. Larson was then announced as the winner, giving him his second victory of the season. Larson has a 29-point lead in NASCAR Cup point standings after 12 events. So, wow, how about that? You got rewarded for sticking out a 4-hour rain delay.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess it was three hours.
Yeah, if you stayed out there the whole time and got to enjoy the race, and listen, there were a lot of people still out there when we went by. That's for sure. I don't think a lot of people left. So that's a great reward for sticking around.
When it was raining, at the K, I was thinking, I don't think they're going to start that race, because we were thinking we might get stuck in traffic coming back. And we had to plan to stop there on K7 going south of the racetrack, Bonner Springs there. And some eating establishments for people to have choices, even though 90% of the bus went to the same place anyway, which was kind of funny. But that was okay. I got to go where I wanted to go.
Absolutely.
Dusty got to go where he wanted to go, so we were happy about it. But the moisture, I had a feeling that the race maybe wouldn't even happen, or they would have to, delay it. And so when we got onto the bus, Dusty and I were talking about, did they have the race Kansas Speedway? And I pulled it up, and it didn't show anything running on the website. And then all of a sudden, Dusty goes, I think they just started it or whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, 4:55 is when they started it. And so when we went by the Speedway, they were just really underway at 5:30, and we're waving at them like, "See you later. You guys can get back really late." And we don't have to worry about any kind of congestion or traffic on I-70 or K7, so we could go eat at those establishments and get home. So rain definitely causes more problems for race cars and the track in particular than it does for obviously baseball or football. Of course, it would cause a problem for basketball, but if it's a problem in basketball, that means you have a leak in your roof.
Yeah, Georgia Dome back in the SEC tournament back in the day.
Yeah. Or you're playing on a carrier.
Like to move it to the Georgia Tech field house.
Yeah, you have something. Every time we go to the Royals bus trip, I point out Kemper Arena, which is Hy-Vee Arena, which doesn't look very good from the outside, all these huge white pipes and everything else. But every time we go to the Royals bus trip, I point it out. And for the people that go on a regular basis, they probably know I'm going to say it. But the last time that the NCAA men's Final Four was held in a regular basketball arena and stadium was Kemper Arena in Kansas City, 1988, when the KU Jayhawks, Danny and the Miracles, knocked off Oklahoma in the championship game. That was the last time that the Final Four, so we're going 36 years ago, which makes me feel old because I remember watching that game. I know where I was in the living room, all excited about it. Kansas pulled off the upset. Billy Packer said that Kansas couldn't run with Oklahoma, and it was 50-50 at halftime, so he was wrong. He actually admitted that, which I thought was cool. Kansas won 83-79. Danny and Miracles winning with Larry Brown as their coach. But 1988 was the final time they had it in a basketball arena, seating around 12 to 16,000 people. 1989, the following year, the Final Four was held in the Kingdome in Seattle. First time they ever had it in a dome. And the idea, of course, was to have more people be able to watch it. And that was when Michigan, Ramil Robinson hit a couple free throws at the very end to beat Seton Hall, which was an amazing game. I think it was overtime, if I remember correctly. Maybe not, but it came down to the final two free throws by Robinson. He clutched, made both of them. They won. Glenn Rice was awesome in that NCAA tournament, as you remember. Went on to have a good career in the NBA, especially with the Miami Heat. But that was the first year they went to a bigger stadium, the Kingdome, okay, which you had the Seahawks played there, the Mariners played there. And guess what? We have never gone back.
No.
We have never gone back. In fact, it's gotten bigger to where we're going into 80, 90, 100,000 seat stadiums almost for people to have binoculars and pay $400 a ticket to see a small little basketball court with players that look like flies. It's not maybe quite that bad. I have been in the Final Four. I've sat mid-court at the very top at the Superdome, okay, in New Orleans in 2012. I also was to the Alamo Dome there to watch the Final Four between Kansas and Villanova in 2018. And same thing, we kind of had seats upper level but mid-court. They weren't as bad as I thought they'd be. I mean, you're a ways away, no doubt. But it's better to me to be kind of mid instead of be way up, way above the basketball goal on the ends, because it's really hard to see the depth perception then, and the basketball goal can kind of, believe it or not, once the ball goes, you lose track of it. So I always say I'd rather sit higher and be mid court but upper level than lower level, not the complete lower level, but if I'm mid lower level but behind the goals, I'd rather not be there. But it is just a different dynamic. And I really wish that we could go back to the way it was, because the atmosphere I don't think is as good. The sound, the noise, they're not on. The fans aren't on top of you as much. But 1988 was the last time that we had an actual basketball arena hosting the Final Four, and that was Kemper.
Yeah, I remember back when I was in high school, we had FFA convention at Kemper Arena, and they were still doing like Big 12 tournament at Kemper, so it was still a thing, right? It was still a basketball arena, but it was a rodeo arena the day I went to it, right? And I'm walking in there, and I'm outside of the building, like you said, it doesn't look great from the outside, and I'm like, this is Kemper Arena.
What a dump!
What are these white poles everywhere? What's going on here? Right. And so I was in awe, because we didn't travel. I mean, we went to 2 Royals games my entire life growing up, so we didn't travel a lot of places, and I didn't get to see a lot of arenas and things like that. And so I was definitely I was in awe of being in the same place where the Big 12 basketball tournament was being played, right, and where national championships had taken place before. But I got to watch a rodeo in Diamond Rio in concert when I went to Kemper Arena, but it was cool to be outside of it. But that was my first reaction when I walked up to it too. It was like, this is it.
Yeah. And now there's traveling sports that are there. They allow traveling youth basketball tournaments. A guy bought it, according to the story I heard, for $1, and then he's trying to make it work and put a lot of money into it. And they got 2 levels of basketball courts. I think there's 16 courts in there for all the traveling basketball, which traveling sports, by the way, I missed out. I should have been on the ground level investing in any traveling sport. I don't care if it's volleyball, basketball, baseball, football, softball. Well, football, not really, although now they got 7-on-7, but baseball, basketball, volleyball, softball. Those are huge now. Just so many tournaments. And we're talking from, all the way down to about 6 years, 7 years of age, all the way up to 18. These youth tournaments. And it is a gigantic business. It used to be more of a select. Kids were kind of selected. Now it's kind of like anybody that has money can call their kid elite.
Yeah.
And then they're like, why ain't my kid getting a scholarship? Because your kid sucks. I mean, you paid the money, and the coach ain't going to tell you your kid's not good enough.
Yeah.
If he has an open spot, he's going to take your money. And he'll be more than happy to not play your kid as much, but he'll take your money and then claim, oh, yeah, your kid's got a lot of potential, which, maybe your kid does. I'm not saying you don't. Maybe another sport, maybe something else. But that's the way traveling sports has become. It's become such a big business. And now somebody was saying it used to be kind of the elite of the elite, which I would argue sometimes the rich of the rich, because those are the ones that could afford it in the first place. And now you've got pretty much nobody being turned down if they want to be a part of it. And then they think, oh, my kid's on this traveling team, so my kid's a star. It's like, no, your kid's not a star. You paid for their spot, and they are happy to take your money. Now, maybe your kid is, a solid player. My son was on traveling basketball, full disclosure. I knew he wasn't a star, but I knew he was a good player, solid player. But the whole thought we had was not to get a scholarship. It was that he loved basketball. You gave him a chance to get better against better competition. He'd get a lot of practice time in during the summer. That's the sport he wanted to play. And we never forced him to do anything. It was totally up to him. We did that each and every year. Like, do you want to try out again? Do you want to do this? Do you not want to do it? Whatever. And then after his junior year, he could have done it. He decided not to. He decided to focus on workouts, work on his own game, worked with somebody else individually, instead of traveling all the way to Atlanta to play 3 basketball games like we did one year, or going all the way to Dallas, or going all the way to Indianapolis. It's because there's a lot of money you spend. I kept track of the money that I spent. Let me tell you something. You have your hotels, you've got your meals. If you take your family, it costs a lot to get into these youth basketball tournaments or youth tournaments in general, no matter what the sport is. It's all about the money, and they will stick it to you. I'll give you an idea. We thought about entering a baseball tournament in Manhattan. Manhattan's charging $445 for a 3-game guaranteed tournament for youth baseball, and we got 10-year-olds, okay? $445 is a little bit on the high end. Used to be you could get in tournaments back when my kid was 9, when he was on a baseball team. It was, I think you could get in for about $225 for a tournament. Maybe you paid about $300. Now that $300 is the low end, and you're playing up to like $400. That's about the range, I would say. And Manhattan wanted $445. But here's the kicker. Not only did they want $445, they wanted $100 for some perfect game registration, which I don't know what kind of crap that is, but that's just sucking more money out of you. Then they needed, and no other tournament that I'm aware of, at least that we've been a part of, wanted a $103 insurance thing we had to pay for before we were allowed to play. So you did the math here. Now you're at $650 to play 3 games. Okay, so that's $220 bucks a game. And if you play 3 innings and get run ruled, well, that was a quick waste of your money, wasn't it? But here's the kicker. You think that's bad. There are a lot of tournaments where you enter the tournament and they have the gate fee included. So those tournament fees are higher, but then at least you've raised enough money, your organization hopefully, to where you pay for the tournament fee, but then the parents of the kids who already got to spend the money on gas to get to these events, maybe even a hotel if it's a 2-day tournament, at least they don't have to pay to get in to watch their kid play, okay? The Manhattan tournament, I just told you they wanted $445 for a tournament. That's just the fee to get in for 3 games. Then they want $100 for some weird registration, $100 for insurance, $645 now, and charging $10 an adult, 5 student to get into the damn tournament. You talk about wanting everything. And we were sitting here and we were debating it because we're like, we don't have a lot of options that weekend. And I know from a financially physical responsible person that I try to be, my first reaction was, tell them no. My second reaction was, if that's the only option, I hate for our kids to be done with the season when we were hoping to have 4 tournaments instead of 3. But I still didn't feel right that we would have to pay all of that. And then what happens if we get rolled in 2 of the 3 games or something like that? That's the business that is traveling sports, and it's right here in our backyard. And so if you're willing to spend the money, then power to you. And we did that with our oldest. We did. I know the organization that I'm with, we have fundraisers to where you don't have to pay to play, okay? Which I'm very proud of that, because a lot of places you got to pay maybe $2,000-$3,000 for your kid to play during the summer on a particular team. Sometimes it might be $500, $1,000. But what you don't factor in is all your gas, all your meals, your hotels. So I'll give you an example real quick. So we had a basketball tournament a few years ago in Indianapolis. Now, my wife's sister lives in Indianapolis, so it was a chance for us to go, and we didn't have to pay for a hotel. And it was, of course, they made it a 3-day tournament. Because here's the trick of these traveling sports things, especially basketball. Let me fill in on another little secret. They usually purposely schedule everybody to play 1 game on a Friday, 2 on a Saturday, 1 on a Sunday. Okay? Sometimes you might play more than that many games, depending how far you go in a bracket. Okay? But typically it's a 1-2-1. And why do they do that? Well, one, they want you to pay more fee at every night to get in to watch your kid play. So if they can get you to pay Friday and they get you to pay Saturday, and then so what usually happens is, hey, you got an evening game on a Saturday. So now you got to cut out of work really early to travel all the way to Indianapolis or take a day off of work. Okay, if you want to see your kid play. Saturday, you got maybe 2-3 games. And then Sunday, when everybody's really into it, you got an 8 a.m. game. And you got to pay every time, every day. Oh, but wait a minute. You got this hellacious deal called a weekend pass. You can get that. That saves you about $5 probably per person. So let me give you an idea. So we went to Indianapolis. Luckily, we didn't have to pay for a hotel room. This is a couple summers ago. It was a great chance for us to see my sister-in-law, okay, and her family. So we got to stay with them. It was $50. $50 for one person for the weekend to pay to watch their kid play basketball. So if I was going to go, okay. Now, if my wife would have wanted to go, and then our 2 other sons, that would have been $200 that I would have had to shell out for my whole family to watch 3 days of basketball in Indianapolis. That $200, I already paid for the kid to be on the team, right? Or at least pay some fees. I paid gas to get all the way there. And if I didn't have a sister-in-law, I would have paid for a hotel room. Now, I'm not saying this, ladies and gentlemen, to say, oh, woe is Wade. He chose to do all this. Yeah, and that is absolutely correct. So I'm not sharing this information to complain about I barely made ends meet to afford it. That's not my point. The reason I'm bringing this up is to show you how big of a business this has become. Because, and these rates will keep going higher, by the way. So what we decided as a family was, would my wife have liked to have seen my son play in those games? Sure, she would have. Would the boys kind of mess around anyway, not paying attention, so it's not that big a deal. So you know what we chose to do? My wife chose to, you know what? You go to the games. I spend the $50, 1 weekend pass. The boys, instead of sitting on their butt watching basketball, which they'd seen a lot of that as younger brothers, they could hang out with their cousins, and my wife could catch up with her sister. So they stayed at the house in Indianapolis, and then I drove my son and myself back and forth to the arenas where we were playing across the Indianapolis metro area, but we went back and didn't have to pay for a hotel room. We saved $150 by not having the whole family go watch all the games. Okay? So now back to particular situation with tournament fees. You have your tournament fees plus other fees plus they're going to charge those parents that are funding your whole thing in the first place even more money to watch your kids play for a team you already paid for. So, once again, that is the choice of those people. They have to decide if that's worth the money to do. And what I'm trying to tell you is there are more and more people that think it's worth it. They think I've got to get, especially people that think their kid's going to get some kind of scholarship. And if you add up the money that you spend on all the traveling sports over the years and your whole plan was your kid to get a scholarship, what you'll find out is not many kids get full ride scholarships. Some don't get any at all. In fact, many don't. But even if you did get a partial scholarship, you add up all the money you spent from, say, age 8 to 18. You know what? You could have paid for the scholarship yourself. So people don't realize that. Now, some people may be listening going, listen, I love that my kids are involved in these things, and I want to support them. And I didn't make them do it. They chose to do it. I want to support it. Did it make it hard on me financially a little bit? Yeah, but you only live once. The kids are young only once. They love to play that sport. They do this, they do that. I totally get it. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you shouldn't do it. What I'm trying to tell you is I missed out. You missed out. All of us missed out on a grand opportunity back when they were starting all this traveling sports stuff. And that was, it is a legitimate multi-million, if not billion, eventually, dollar business. And it is, so don't get caught up when the coach tells you how great your kid is, because he says that to most of the kids. Okay? And if they're short a couple kids on a roster, they're more than happy to take your fee, and then you pay other fees so that they have maybe insurance on the roster, but know that kid probably isn't at that level. But they ain't going to turn down your money usually. They're going to take your check, and they're going to cash it. Okay? Now, there are some institutions I think truly do care about kids in development. I think there are. I think there's others that don't. All they care about is getting the money, and then that's not a great experience for some people. So if you are a parent of a young kid thinking about getting into traveling sports, I'm telling you to beware. It's going to be costly. It can be rewarding. We had some great experiences in regards to the family on road trips, and we got to stay in hotels and hang out, go to the pool sometimes. We went to eat at some neat places. That was cool, although, once again, pricey. My son and I flew to Atlanta, and we got to go to a Braves game and fit that in, and we went to the Coca-Cola Museum downtown Atlanta. It was just him and me that went to Atlanta because my wife and the other kids stayed because it was going to be pretty pricey for all of us to go. Mm-hmm. And they actually went to with family to Colorado. And so we were opposite parts of the country. But I got to bond with my son, my oldest, who's now not going to be in the house very much longer. Mm-hmm. He's not in the house much now anyway. He's always out with his friends, which is great. But so those are great experiences. And do I regret spending the money to do any of that? I'm not telling you I do. But I will tell you, full disclosure again, is that when he played, our oldest son played traveling ball for a couple of years, and I know how much it cost, and I never told him how much it cost, and I never told him he should or shouldn't do it. But we were in Atlanta, and we were waiting for our plane. I think it was delayed. We were in Atlanta, and we were eating at a restaurant overlooking the tarmac, and it was just my oldest son and I, and this is as he was, let's see, that would have been, it would have been the end of his junior year, so it was, well, it would have been sophomore. I can't remember. Anyway, I said, what do you think about next year for traveling ball? I said, he had done it 2 years. He had just pretty much concluded his second year. I said, what are you thinking? And he said, well, I'm kind of like, part of me thinks I don't need to do this. I can work on my game and work on my fundamentals, and I can do this. And I said, we can get you lined up with somebody who can help you, this and that, whatever. He said, and it'd be a lot less travel. I'd have more time to make some money working at the pool or doing this. Plus, I still would have time. All that time I'm wasting in travel, I could be working on my game as well and not being worn out after a 3-day trip to an Indianapolis or Dallas or whatever the case may be. And so he saw pros and cons to it. And I think he realized that, you know what, I've played enough, I've gained enough. He knew it benefited him as a player, but he also didn't think he was going to really miss out on too much if he didn't play his third year because he had gained a lot by playing the first 2 years. Now, for me, I'll tell you what I was hoping he would say. Yeah, I don't think I want to do it next year. Why? Because I'm selfish. I was thinking more weekends available at home, more time, less time on the road, less time in hotels, save money, all these things were going through my head. But I never wanted him to I didn't want to make the decision for him. Because as I told him, I said, listen, if this is something you want to do, and you only get to do it once. If you want to do another year of this, we'll support it. We'll make it happen. And I did point out that there are advantages, as he said, of staying home and having more weekends free. I said, it allows us to maybe have a better chance of planning a vacation. Yeah, exactly. Because that's hard to find a window. And we went through that discussion, and he came to the conclusion that he was leaning towards not doing it. You know what? I don't think it hurt him at all. He had a really good senior year, and he worked on his game in the offseason, and he did not do the traveling sports. It did save us the money of not doing that, but I also didn't have that, him and me trip to Atlanta that we had the year before. And so there's pros and cons to all of it. But what you do need to understand is don't get caught up in people trying to blow smoke up your butt so much, okay? they will say, I say as the people leading these organizations or teams, groups, whatever you want to call them, many of them are going to say what you want to hear in order for you to fill a spot or to help them make money or to cash that check. Now, there are some that will be honest with you saying, you're not going to play a lot but you got a chance to keep this. The great thing is all the practices will help you improve. And I think that is a good point. I think when you play people that are good as you or better, it should make you better. I think that is true. But for those young people out there, young parents that have kids that are looking about getting traveling sports, first of all, find people you're comfortable with. If you can do it locally and travel a little bit. Now, I would love for people to stay and don't kill your local leagues and all that other stuff, which we've seen that dwindle from what it used to be, although there's still some of that now. But just understand what you're getting yourself into. This is me giving you a heads up. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm not saying that you should go broke doing it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. What I'm telling you is understand the animal that you're about to get involved with. Understand that it's a gigantic commitment. All the practices, all the travel, the wear and tear on your vehicle. You're going to wear the tread off your tires. You might even have to fly sometimes or take long, long road trips. You might have to get out of work and you might not have enough sick time or vacation time and lose money that way. Okay. Or you may have to work and you miss your kid playing in these things. Those are all things that you have to consider. But let me tell you, I sure as hell wish that I was on the ground level of this whole thing, because all of us would be sipping Mai Tais and kicking back on the beach talking about all the money we made off of traveling sports.
Yeah, I can't add a lot, obviously, because I don't have children, but I have a nephew that did everything you're talking about there. I saw it with my sister. I saw it firsthand on a couple occasions when I actually went and traveled with him just to watch him play, and it was wild just walking in there every day and having to pay $10 to see him play. Yeah. For a 8:30 game in the morning, you knew they were going to get blown out. And the time I went to Tulsa, I was like, I knew who they were playing because that's just the way the bracket set up and who their opponent was going to be. I'm like, they're going to get run out of the gym because they were playing an age up. Mm-hmm. And I'd seen that team play the day before, and I'm like, they have no chance against this team. Right. I'm going to pay $10 to get into this 8:30 game. We're going to be out of Tulsa by 9:15. Like, we're leaving. Yeah. Like, we know that because it's a bracket and they can advance. But it's like, well, they're not advancing. They're done. After it's just realistic, right? Like, right. And so that whole thing was wild to me. It's like, we're going to pay $10 to be here for 45 minutes, mm-hmm. and everybody's going to do that. And so, yeah, it is. Just to be around some of that was crazy. Just to see the money that's going around, and now you're paying for whatever the dang streaming service is where you can watch them too. And you got to sign up for that. And if you want to watch them, and they make money off of that. And
T-shirt sales at the tournaments,
concessions, and all this stuff. And the only time I actually spent quite a bit of time was at Hy-Vee Arena, their Kemper Arena, basically. And so it's like you're walking around this place, and it's like, man, what are we doing here? Like, there's so much money being thrown around here. And then just a side note about the 2-level courts, like the bottom courts, some of the vantage points were very weird watching basketball. I'm just going to say that. But yeah, I mean, you think about the guy that bought that arena. Mm-hmm. Okay, if he paid $1, whatever, obviously he had to put money into it to make it like it is, to have 2 levels. Right. But you slapped Hy-Vee on the side of that arena, made a lot of money back for that probably. Mm-hmm. And then all the money that's being funneled through with every tournament that's being played there during the summer, it's like he's got to be making. Yeah, now see, I don't think from what I understand, I don't think he's the one that's making that money, because he's not in charge of these organizations. He just would lease out the building for these. Yeah, tournaments. That's right. Okay? Yeah, and I'll tell you who's making by leasing it to these. Yeah, organizations. But he's got a lot of expenses too. The people that are making the money hand over fist
are the people in charge of these circuits.
Absolutely.
Next Pro, whatever it is now, and Prep Hoops. Because then they also charge for you to see your kid with a picture with a little article, which they do for about every kid.
Yeah.
And then you got to subscribe to see the whole article.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a complete business, and they'll do it for every kid. So you think your kid's special, and then the next kid has something. Right? I went through all this, okay? And so it is a business, and it's a really smart business model. I mean, you're taking advantage in a good, it's capitalistic society. You're providing something that people apparently crave. And so they go ahead and they pay for it, whether it's T-shirts, concessions, they pay this, they pay that, they pay this, they pay that. They pay for a subscribership to read one story about their kid, forget to cancel the membership and keep paying, whatever the case may be. But those are the ones that make the money. There's one guy that was part of the one organization, broke off and created a whole nother one because he saw the things that needed to be improved but couldn't because he wasn't high enough, created his own other thing, and he's doing extremely well. In regards to the owner of Hy-Vee Arena, I don't know how well he's doing, but remember, there isn't a tournament there all the time or every weekend. Whereas these organizations, they have a circuit and they have a tournament every single weekend. Do they have to pay fees for the facilities? They have to pay the officials? Yeah. And let me give you one more heads up if you're getting into youth sports, especially the basketball side of it. Get ready for bad officiating.
Absolutely.
Because here's what they basically do. They give a guy a whistle or a gal, and they say, call whatever looks extremely obvious to you. And it is sometimes a bloody murder. It is so physical. It is so rough. And sometimes kids get hurt. And not all. There's some officials do a good job in some of these games. So I don't want to paint a bad picture about all the officials. But there are some that can't even get down the floor. But there's not enough officials, so they get paid really well. And they do get paid well at these things usually. But they don't even get past half court. And sometimes the official don't show up. And there's one official trying to ref the entire game. And you know what all the players are like? We can get away with anything we want, unless it's obvious. And so that creates bad habits. So you're talking about development. Do you know what happens to these kids when they go back in their high school and play high school basketball games? And they get all mad at the officials because they actually call real fouls. You have to adjust. So that's something that's not great either.
There's a lot of stuff with spring, summer basketball that's bad for development. There are quite a few good things you can learn from it.
Yeah.
And if you're on the right teams with the right coaches, definitely a lot of good things you can learn from it.
Right.
I went to a tournament last spring where the team my nephew was playing didn't even have a coach. And the kids took the tip, and they were taking threes from 4 feet behind the line. That's all they were doing. Just messing around and shooting threes.
I was going to say, good shot selection, guys.
That's all they did. They were better than my nephew's team, and they still won the game.
Right.
But they were not playing basketball.
No.
They didn't have a coach.
Right.
It's 6 kids suited up, wearing pink uniforms, and they were just messing around. They didn't even have a coach. This was MAYB. It wasn't like an AAU type of, that circuit or anything like that. But I was just like, what are we doing here? This is not developing anything right now. And they're paying money to go do that.
To do it, yeah.
And it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah. It's a absolute, complete,
you see everything
money-grubbing business.
When you're at those tournaments, though, man. Yeah. It's crazy.
And like I said, there's some organizations I think have the right intent.
Absolutely.
Like I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but, I thought, Will Spradling SSA, that's the organization that my son played with, I thought they did a nice job, and they had different clinics that they would do. They charged a small amount, wasn't a lot of money, to come over once a week, and they would work with kids in their fundamentals from different age groups. Like they would put in some extra time that, I'll tell you right now, I don't think SSA makes tons of money on what they do. I'm sure they make at least something. Otherwise, I don't think they keep doing it. But there are organizations much bigger than SSA where they're rolling in some money and dough. And then some of these teams are funded by like NBA players. You talk about Buddy Hield, he kind of helps pay for this or that or whatever. So that's good for the players, or if they get these free shoes or whatever the case may be. But it is a very interesting animal. But it is an animal that continues to grow in size. And it's happening now, not just on basketball, but we're seeing it in baseball. Yeah. We've seen it in softball. Volleyball's becoming
really blowing up.
Volleyball's really blowing up. And then now we're seeing 7-on-7 football stuff during the summer. And I'm sitting here and I was like thinking, as a kid, if you try to do all that, you might die from stress. Like you can't do everything. But what's sad about it, here's the part I don't like. What's sad about all of that is, in a way, you almost have to pick your sport earlier than you should have to. Like you got to specialize. Well, what happens then? That hurts your smaller schools when you have a player that likes basketball and volleyball, but she chooses to do volleyball all the time because, well, she didn't have as much time to work on her basketball game because she really needed to be at all these volleyball camps. Or you've got a kid that really, really, really likes baseball, but he needs to be involved in basketball or he's not going to play, and they got a chance to be really good next year. You know, those type of things happen, and you almost have to make a decision. You can't do every sport because then you're not going to make it to certain practices, and then you miss practice time, you won't play as much, and you're paying to play on that team, and you're paying to play on this team. You know, really, for the most part, and for your family's sake of sanity, you really need to. I think the people that have their kids involved in like 2 or 3 traveling sports in the summer, God bless them, but I think they're insane. Because it was hard enough for us with just one kid in one sport. But if you can do it, all power to you. But at some point, like, do you have a life? Do you actually get to kick back and sit on your back deck and have a beer? Because last summer I was able to do that. And my wife and I had some really good conversations. You know what happens when we're traveling all the time? Well, you're in the car. Yeah, but you can't have the conversation you want to have because your kid's in the back seat.
Yeah.
Okay? So those, you almost are forced as a young person, whether you're 11, 12, maybe even younger, to already have to decide what is your sport. And I think that's one thing that I hate about it.
Yeah. One of the most interesting things is I think football coaches are some of the most adamant about don't specialize.
Yeah.
The ones that I've been around. For some reason, football coaches are the ones that are saying don't specialize. We want you playing all sports, right? Like, but now if you're adding the 7-on-7 football stuff, now you're even doing some of that, not maybe year round, but half the year. You're doing 7-on-7 stuff during the summer. So now you're specializing in football too. If you've made that decision to do that part, and so that's going to take away from development in another sport, and maybe development that football coaches don't necessarily want is just playing football. Because I know a lot of coaches that are like, don't specialize. Because you could look at a guy like, look
at Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, Mahomes is a perfect example of the large scale of it. But somebody that I've actually seen is Avery Johnson, right? Like, he's a stud football player at Mays, but every time I'd go watch my nephew play Mays, Avery Johnson was on the court playing basketball. And Dylan Edwards, I'm pretty sure, played basketball at Derby. And so whether it's basketball, whether you're wrestling, whatever you're doing, if you're doing football too, is like those were opportunities because football wasn't a year-round sport.
Right.
And now it's turning into even football is a year-round sport. And as far as the mentality of getting trained and ready for it, maybe not always doing it, but it's like, man, it's just like, where does it end? You can't, specialization is going to happen pretty much everywhere now. Now, if you're specializing in basketball and you've made that decision at a school the size of Mays or Newton or Solana Central, then you're probably going to get a lot of specialization because there's a lot of guys that can go out on that football field that a basketball player doesn't want to do to avoid the risk of injury and things like that. And that this is my sport, this is what I want to do. There's more specialization in what I'm saying in higher class schools because it's easier to do, and it doesn't hurt the other team by doing it.
But it's becoming more specialization, as we were seeing. It's tinkling down all the way to 3A, 2A, and even lower. And we're seeing that more and more. And I'm not saying anybody's wrong in all of this. No. It's just that there's so many more options now. And I left out a sport. Track and field now. I mean, I see an article in the Bullet Call of somebody from our area, going all the way to Fort Lauderdale or Alabama for some track meet. It's not just... No, I mean, track and field. There's traveling there too.
We've had a lot of really good athletes to go out to USATF Nationals. Madison Howland's ripping it up at Smith Center right now as a freshman, and she's put the work in and has done that. Her specialty is track and field, and again, that's good.
Yes,
she's succeeding. She's having an outstanding career already, and she's just a freshman, And so, those are decisions that the kid makes or the family makes, to see if this is what you want to do, you'll do it, but at the same time, I know that other coaches and teams would kind of be like, oh, man, I wish we could have her here or him here. But again, that's a decision that you've made, and I don't fault anybody for making the decision that they feel like is the best for their kid or their family or whatever that is.
The biggest piece of advice I would give to any young parent out there that has kids that are getting close to traveling sports, I want this to sink in. This is the most important question you need to ask your child. I don't care if it's a girl or a boy. I don't care if they're 7, 8, 9, 12, 15. The question you need to ask to your kid before you go any further with anything else is, what do you want to do this summer? Or do you want to do this? Or is this something you're interested in? And don't push them one way or the other. Even if you want to see something, don't speak for your kid.
Yeah.
Ask your kid, listen, do you want to do traveling basketball? We did that with our son. We said, listen, do you want to try out? Here's a chance to get better. You love basketball. Do you want to try out? He said, yes. I said, okay, now listen, you need to be prepared. If you don't get selected, that might hurt, that you didn't make the team. If you do, you need to be prepared for before you try out. Here's some of the things that I researched it. I talked to a parent that had a kid and told me all and I asked Will too. It's like, okay, what are the commitments? How many practices? When do you practice? Where do you practice? How many tournaments? Do you have a tournament schedule? What's the cost? Blah, blah, blah. So but I needed to find out first if my kid wanted to try out. And if he wanted to try out, it wasn't me telling him he had to try out. It wasn't me saying you should try out. It was, hey man, do you want to try out for this team? And if he said yes, which he did, I said, okay, don't be hurt too much. If you don't make the team, then you learn what you got to improve on. Maybe you try out next year. If you make the team, okay, here are the things you're going to have to commit to, and we as a family have to commit to. If you are cool with all of this before you try out, then we support you whether you make the team or not. I feel and I fear there are families and parents who relive in their childhood that are thinking that they are falling behind everybody else, and they feel this peer pressure as an adult. Well, Johnny down the street's on this traveling team. My kid's going to fall behind, and damn, I'm going to make sure my kid gets on that team, and I don't care what it costs. I'm going to make sure that kid gets on the team so my kid doesn't fall behind because I think my kid's a good athlete, or I think my kid could be a good athlete. And you know what they fail to do? Ask the damn kid what he wants. Next thing you know, and I've seen it. I've seen it over and over with kids I know and I love. Get burnt out, don't want to be doing the sport they're doing. They're forced out by their parents or guilted into or pressured into by their family to play. And I can tell kids that don't want to be there or put so much pressure on themselves, it's not enjoyable. And that's the last thing we need to do on young people is put way, way more pressure on them to where it can cause problems down the line mentally. Whether you lose your confidence completely, whether you don't feel like you're doing what you want to do, turn to other things as you get older that are bad things for you. I think we as adults, and I'm counting myself in this conversation, we as adults, I think, need to be maybe better at not getting caught up in trying to stay up with the Joneses and trying to keep up with, I want my kid to be on an equal playing field, so I got to spend all this money for them to be on a traveling team. No, you don't. You know what? There are kids I've seen that haven't been on all these traveling teams that have done very well. I've seen kids that everybody wrote off that did nothing in junior high, but then, grew into their body and got a scholarship offer and didn't spend all the money on traveling sports. Because there are some people that do believe this. I think there is something to it. You're an athlete or you're not. You can work on your game a lot. You can improve your game. There's no doubt about that. But can you jump above the rim and dunk? You can't teach that. I mean, you can't. You can try to make them jump higher, and they may eventually do a lot of plyometrics and all this to where you can jump higher, more vertical, and you can dunk. But some kids are just born to do stuff.
Yeah.
And I think some people forget about that as well. So once again, my biggest thing out of this whole little thing we're talking about with traveling sports is make sure you ask your kid, and don't, make sure they're not answering it just to please you. Hopefully you know your kid well enough to know whether they're just saying it to please you or that they really mean it. Try to get an honest answer from your kid and accept it. Because if you don't, then you've disrespected your kid because you asked, but then didn't care about the answer. So then you shouldn't ask in the first place. I think some people don't ask because they don't want to hear the answer.
For sure, yeah.
And that's not good. So if you want to do these things, power to you. But as we started the whole conversation, why we curved into this topic was the money. The money from the Final Four from 88 to 89 going into these big arenas. You got Hy-Vee Arena, Kemper Arena that now doesn't host Final Fours, is now hosting traveling sports. You've got basketball tournaments and all this other stuff. And you start going down and you say, wow, all of this stuff kind of ties in together in regards to one common theme that is common in so many things we talk about, whether it's in real life, whether it's news, whether it's sports, and it comes down to what?
The almighty dollar.
The almighty dollar. Just keep that in mind when you make some of these decisions. Don't get fooled into thinking that everybody cares so much about your kid. They might, and then again, they might not. And that's for you as an adult to try to figure out. Because sometimes I think adults get so flattered by this, and what they don't realize is they tell everybody that they're the prettiest girl in the room.
State, regional, and national sports talk on your schedule. The Sports Ticket Podcast. Subscribe via Apple, Google, and TuneIn Podcasts or sunflowerstateradio.com.